Today's podcast is brought to you by Chikara Wrestle Factory, 4711 Wingate Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, specializing in lucha libre, porosu, European, British, and German styles, mixed martial arts, and American pro wrestling, all built into the curriculum at the Wrestle Factory, where they strive to create the most well-rounded performers active today. Hey yo, it's the Fro Wrestling Podcast. For all you listeners, help us out. Click to subscribe to show your support. Hello everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fro Wrestling Podcast. We're here to discuss all the results coming out of Fastlane and any other news and tidbits we've seen around the world of professional wrestling. But let's get started right away with the Fastlane results. Last night's show was off the hook. All the betting odds leading up to this pay-per-view indicated who they felt was going to win, and I can't tell you the last time the odds makers got so much so wrong. And it's a good thing. This made the show unpredictable and made it exciting. I can't remember the last time I truly enjoyed the intrigue and the mystique about watching a WWE pay-per-view and seeing things happen that you totally didn't expect to happen. And this was awesome for the product. The show started off with the kickoff show where they had this interview segment where Jinder Mahal and Rusev, they're in the back talking to Mick Foley about how they don't want to be a tag team anymore. Mick Foley promises he's going to book both men into their own separate singles matches later in the show, which I appreciate because it gave more talent an opportunity to get into the programming, and more important than that, it gave you two more matches that made this show really fill out. It was kind of lacking before that, and we had no idea who they were going to go against. We'll find out about that later, but the kickoff show got started with a fantastic match between Akira Tozawa and Rich Swann as they went against Noam Dar along with Alicia Fox and the Brian Kendrick. This was a fantastic match. Back and forth, high spots like you expect. The 205 Live crew is starting to really turn it on. Now, the only drawback I have with the 205 Live staff is that the people that wrestle for 205 Live, they really are starting to, all the matches are looking the same. It's almost like a cookie cutter carbon copy. Every match that you see is pretty much the same stuff over and over and over again. At the end of the day, though, you cannot argue with the physicality, the high risks, and all the movesets that these guys put on and how amazing a talent these guys are. So it was really nice to see that. Great match ending with Akira Tozawa hitting a snap suplex, Rich Swann hitting his splash for the win, and they take out Dar and Kendrick. In the first match of the actual pay-per-view, Samoa Joe came out to take on Sami Zayn. The match was built properly. It was built to make Joe and Zayn look strong. And going into the match, that's exactly how you felt. In the actual match, though, there was almost a change of how you felt about the characters. Samoa Joe was clearly going to be the dominant brute force that they're making his character into. And when it came to Sami Zayn was made to look like that underdog fighting up from the bottom. You know, all these comebacks, he's getting beat down and all these kinds of things. And at the end of the day, he finds a way to really turn it on towards the end and bring himself to a higher level, which was good to see. It gave you some empathy for his character, so even though at the end of the match, you know, of course, there's a Coquina clutch and Samoa Joe's going to win, but you don't see Sami Zayn's character taking a huge hit as far as his place on the roster is concerned. Instead, it kept Sami Zayn with some respectability and the ability to be a legitimate contender going forward should Samoa Joe win a championship and Zayn ever get a shot or something of that nature. The match had good intrigue and mystique all around it. Sami Zayn making it several comebacks, Joe, you know, hitting all his traditional moves. So I really enjoyed this match top to bottom. I thought it was a great way to kick off the main show. The next match on the card was the Tag Team Championship match, Gallows and Anderson versus Enzo and Cass. Gallows and Anderson were made to look strong the entire match. They were buff, they were out there, very physical. Cass was hitting all his high spots. The problem I have is it's almost like a blueprint to any match involving Enzo and Cass in a tag team situation. They're either going to win the match, or at the end of the day, Enzo is going to end up being the scapegoat for the easy loss. You know, in this one again, he ends up getting kicked in the head, drop kick to the head, takes him out of the match, and Enzo and Cass lose in their bid for the Tag Team Championship. Gallows and Anderson move on. On an interesting side note, it was funny that during the pay-per-view, Matt Hardy went online and was tweeting to Carl Anderson, talking trash about, you know, they've already deleted the Bucks of Youth and now they have their eyes on their championship. I've said this before, I would love to see the Hardys come back to WWE as champions elsewhere. I think that would be good for the business. Just saying. And the word is that the Hardys contract with Ring of Honor may only be a short-term deal, so who knows if we could see that happen. The next match, the first big shocker of the pay-per-view, Sasha Banks defeats Nia Jax with a roll-up from behind. This match, I mean, in all seriousness, Nia Jax was a beast the entire match. Absolutely destroying Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks finds a way to come back, build up, and keeps fighting back, and she keeps getting clobbered, and she fights back again, put on her submission holds, and Jax gets out of it, and just constant back and forth, and everything she does, she cannot keep Nia Jax down, and at the end of the day, Nia Jax ends up winning with essentially a schoolboy roll-up. Now, the word coming out of the pay-per-view is that Nia Jax was supposed to lose the match, even though the odds bookers had her at a minus 1,700 on favorite to win. But the reality was how it went down was supposed to be a little bit different. It was supposed to be Sasha Banks grabbing a hold of the rope to make this happen. Now, we don't know if she forgot that she was supposed to do that, or maybe it was one of those situations where the positioning in the ring, they just weren't close enough to the ropes for her to get a hold of the rope. Though when you watch the match back, it doesn't look like she makes an effort to go for the rope. At the end of the day, this was designed for her to grab the ropes and cheat her way to victory, so you could lay the groundwork for this heel turn when they want to put her against Bayley in the future. So that didn't happen the way you expected it to. It would have made a whole lot more sense at the end of the day when the matches take place later in the evening that she's involved with. But at the end of the day, awesome win for Sasha Banks. And Nia Jax, she's still a monster, so she's fine. She's over. One loss isn't going to end her career. Go on to the Cruiserweight Championship match. Neville defeats Jack Gallagher, but that's kind of what we expected. That is not the story coming out of this match. The story coming out of the match is that Neville and Jack Gallagher established a storyline in this match that was believable, that the match at any point in time could have gone either way. There was so much physicality. This match rivaled any other match on the card for the brutality. At one point, Neville grabs Gallagher and does a belly-to-back suplex and tosses him into the air. He about comes down on his head. It looked like it could have been a career-threatening thing. That's how serious the throw was. For him to come back and rebound and hit these just insanely... Gallagher hitting these huge headbutts to the chest and face of Neville, and they sounded about as real as anything you get. Now, you know they're not, but that's not the point. The way it made it looked genuine. It looked almost like straight up shoot fighting. At one point, he hits a headbutt when he has Neville up on the turnbuckle, and Neville's literally sprawled backwards. His head is resting on the ring post because they have him given that appearance that he's just totally knocked out, which he ends up recovering as Gallagher goes for a superplex. He ends up countering that into this funky suplex drop thing that looked really not good. I mean, it looked like, again, just like the belly to back, it was a really bad fall for Gallagher. He hits the red arrow, and that's the match. He retains, which we expected, but I never expected it to be such an over-the-top physical match. Awesome match, in my opinion. Just my opinion, I'm sure. That was the match of the night. Neville versus Jack Gallagher, and I hope this does nothing but boost Jack Gallagher's stock infinitely going forward. The next match, Roman Reigns versus Braun Strowman. Anybody who knows leading up to this match, Strowman was the heavy favorite and the Undertaker's to make his appearance. And to everyone's surprise, 1, no Undertaker. He didn't show up. 2, after what has to be considered one of the most physical matches of Reigns' career, they end up going to the finish where Braun Strowman climbs to the turnbuckle, and he's going to hit this huge splash off the turnbuckle. And as he was climbing the ropes, all I could picture in my head was those flashbacks to like 2001 with Psycho Sid in WCW jumping off the rope and breaking his leg. I was just like, dear God, don't let Braun get hurt. And he came off the ropes, he misses the splash into the middle of the ring. Roman Reigns recovers, hits the spear, and gets the clean pinfall victory over Braun Strowman. This was absolutely not the way the odds makers thought it was going to go down, and it was a beautiful swerve for all those people who were betting people who thought that Strowman was going to go over. This keeps Roman Reigns really strong heading into his match with The Undertaker that should be set up tonight on Raw, which I'm not watching right now because I want to record this for you beforehand. Plus, Strowman is still strong enough that when you put him into the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, which is where I expect them to put him, if and when he wins that, it'll just lend more credibility to just build him right back to where he was heading into this feud with Roman Reigns. So, awesome match, even better outcome. The big one for me of the night that totally shocked me, I expected Charlotte to overcome Bayley by either disqualification or a countout or something so that Charlotte could keep her streak of pay-per-view wins intact. That did not happen. after a Bayley to belly and outside the ring, and then rolling into the ring, Charlotte rolling Bayley up for a pin. Sasha Banks is there, and she gets the referee's attention, claiming that she's holding the tights or whatever, which ends up resulting in a kick out from the pin attempt, and then Charlotte getting hit with another Bayley to belly and getting pinned in the center of the ring. So this is, again, the odds makers had Charlotte Flair winning this match. Because of that streak, I totally bought into that stuff too. But at the end of the day, they give the clean win to Bayley. She ends Charlotte's undefeated streak in pay-per-views, and it sets up an insane scenario for WrestleMania. Do you book a rematch with Charlotte? Do you book the Sasha Banks match because it's clear that they're going that direction? Do you book something with Nia Jax and Charlotte? How do you configure these four women? Because they really have all kinds of directions they can go with this. They've all looked strong. They've all had losses. This is really a great position for WWE to be in because they can book any direction they want to. The main event of the night, the I want to say shocking, but it's just not shocking. It's one of those things we should have come to expect. The main event of the night, we already knew Goldberg was in the favorite to win the Universal Championship, but I don't think anybody, and maybe we're the fools for not thinking it, nobody would have thought that the win would have come in 21.65 seconds. Even shorter than the Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar match. In this match, you end up seeing, Goldberg's music hit. He comes out to the ring. Kevin Owens' music hit. He comes out to the ring, and then he won't get in the ring to start the match. The referee can't start the bell. Roll into the ring, roll out of the ring. Drop down off the apron, out to the floor, psyching out Goldberg, getting him all pumped up. The announcers are talking about how this is not good for Goldberg. He's going to be all blown up, and he's going to be, tired by the time they get to wrestle. And finally, Owens slides into the ring, goes up to the ref. He's like, "Ring the bell, ref, ring the bell." And then as the referee gets ready to ring the bell, cue Break the Walls Down. Chris Jericho's music. As Jericho walks to the top of the entranceway, the bell rings, and then you see on Kevin Owens' face, he realizes the bell rings, he turns around, Goldberg hits the spear, stands up, does his little pose, puts him in a jackhammer, and pins him to win the Universal Championship. I don't have a problem with Goldberg winning a championship like a lot of people do. What I have a problem with is you've now booked him a grand total of less than 2 minutes in 2 main event matches that people pay good money to see. And at this point, this was an opportunity for Goldberg to get some in-ring work before his match at Mania. Because I'm telling you right now, they're going to get booed out of the building if they put on a minute and a half or less match with Goldberg and Brock again. It's just, these quick matches have to stop. If you believe in Goldberg's character and if you believe he legitimately belongs in the main event at WrestleMania, then you have to start booking him stronger than you currently are. You can't give him these 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-second matches. It doesn't work. He spent more time in the Royal Rumble than he did in both of his matches combined. So that's the only issue I have with it. Otherwise, I have no problem with the Jericho involvement in Kevin Owens. No involvement from Brock Lesnar. There was an interview earlier in the evening in the kickoff show and within the programming talking to Paul Heyman about, actually it was after the pay-per-view went off the air, I was talking to Paul Heyman about Brock Lesnar and whatnot, but at the end of the day, a lot of the things that the odds makers thought were going to happen did not go down. I'm going to turn the page to something else WWE related tonight. I as a huge fan myself, someone who is a huge raving lunatic mark for this guy, if so long overdue, Ravishing Rick Rude is now going to be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. We reported that back in January, early in our podcast run, and it was announced today. It's made official. Rick Rude will be inducted, and he will be inducted by Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who, if you look at the people who could induct Rick Rude, he is probably one of the best to induct him. They had classic matches both in WWE. They were the kickoff match for the original Royal Rumble on USA Network. If anybody ever remembers watching that, Rick Rude and Ricky Steamboat ended up wrestling a time limit draw, a 15-minute draw. It was an awesome match. So they carried that feud as they went into WCW over the US Championship, which again was just off the charts, killer matches. Steamboat could probably do that with anybody, but Rick Rude was such a talent and so underappreciated. He should have been a multiple-time world champion and never was really given that push. I know people debate this every day about whether Rick Rude ever held a world championship, and here's my take on it. At the time, Rick Rude won the NWA World Heavyweight Championship when they were trying to resuscitate the NWA. He won it in Japan against Masa Chono. And he brought the title back to WCW. They were trying to do a working relationship with the NWA, and that relationship fell apart. And it became the WCW International Heavyweight Championship. I don't care what you want to call it. When he won it, it was the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And I don't care how minuscule their company may be right now, if I have to acknowledge places like Lucha Underground, AAA, CMLL, New Japan, Pro Wrestling Noah, All Japan, which is much smaller now than it used to be, if those places, Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, especially for the last year in Impact Wrestling, if we have to acknowledge their world champions as world champions, then you have to acknowledge Rick Rude defeating Masa Chono, one of the greatest Japanese wrestlers in history, as a win for a real world championship. That title went on to be defended and carried by people like Sting, Ric Flair, the Great Muta, Barry Windham, and to me, those were all world championship reigns. And it didn't shift until they unified those championships, and then there was one championship again. But I have no problem acknowledging Rick Rude as a world champion because of that. And if you get an opportunity, I think I said it on a previous podcast, go back and watch Rick Rude versus Ric Flair at Fall Brawl the one year. I mean, that match, to me, had as much prestige and interest as the main events of many pay-per-views. Rick Rude and Ric Flair in the ring for the big gold belt. In other WWE news, it sounds like Shaq is back. At least he's at the negotiating table with WWE. He made a quote online about him negotiating with somebody high up in the company and that it was never about him, it was about other people. Hopefully this match gets done because I'd like to see the Big Show get his due, something he's wanted for so long. This may be his last WrestleMania, and I really like to see Show go out in his last WrestleMania and get the match that he's been working towards for so long. On unrelated news, Matt Hardy has put in a trademark request for the Broken character. This is obviously something that can be disputed and debated by Impact Wrestling, but should he win this, which it sounds like he will, what he will win is, going forward, he will own the character. It does not mean that Impact Wrestling can't still sell DVDs and publish the footage and make money themselves off of the character that was created there, but it means that Matt Hardy can bring the character with him elsewhere, and should he make a return to WWE, he could bring that character with him, and WWE would not get ownership of it, much in the way WWE did not own the CM Punk trademark. In other Hardy-related news, it's now been announced that the Hardy Boys, the new Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions, will be at the 15th anniversary show. It hasn't been announced what capacity they'll be at the show, but it'll be interesting to see how they work them into the matches, since all the other top talents have already been booked. In other, I don't want to say independent news, but I'm not going to give Impact Wrestling a toot until they do something really spectacular. But they had one more set of tapings for their April 6th episode of Impact Wrestling, where they had this crazy, almost like a fantasy draft matchup as an 8-man tag team match. And they ended up, 2 teams were chosen, Josh Matthews and what's his name? I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But anyways, they draft 2 teams. Team number 1 was Bobby Lashley, Tyrus, Eli Drake, and Bram. They went against Alberto El Patron, Matt Morgan returning to the company, Magnus returning to the company, and Chris Adonis, who many WWE fans would know as Chris Masters. That team, just on paper, that's 4 guys who've all returned to the company within the past, week to week and a half, defeating 4 guys who've been in Impact Wrestling for the last several years. I have a little bit of an issue with that. You just can't. What was the point of the last several years if you just have these new guys come in and defeat everybody who's been running your show for forever? Just saying, I don't like the booking in that one. Should have been a schmaz ending, shouldn't have had a clear-cut winner, and unfortunately Magnus hits an elbow off the top and kicks up the win, and that's how they end that match. I don't like that. I really would have liked to seen more respect for those loyal TNA wrestlers who stayed with the company for the last several years. This day in pro wrestling history, 16 years ago, speaking of the Hardys defeated the Dudley Boys for the WWF Tag Team Championship. 4 years ago, unfortunate, sad thing, the passing of the legendary Paul Bearer, former manager of The Undertaker, of Kane, of Mick Foley as his Mankind character. But other than that, some things that some people sometimes forget about is Paul Bearer, the man who played him, played Percival Pringle III in World Class Championship Wrestling. He contributed in Hollywood Wrestling out in California. Like, he's done so much more than just be Paul Bearer. He had a long career long before the Paul Bearer character. Granted, the Paul Bearer character gave him his greatest success, but I don't want to negate all the stuff he did before that. He guided the careers of Rick Rude and people like that in World Class Championship Wrestling, as they were like some of the head competition to the Von Erich family. So, sad anniversary. Paul Bearer is a character I still miss on television. So if you ever get a chance, go onto YouTube and pull up his original initiation into WWE when he's on the Brother Love show. Brother Love introduces him as the new man taking over the career of The Undertaker. Very interesting, and he was a whole lot thinner then. So it's amazing to see the transformation from beginning to his unfortunate passing, but it's still, rest in peace, Paul Bearer. We'll always remember you fondly. And 45 years ago was the launch of what has now become, in my opinion, I've said this before, the greatest professional wrestling on the planet today. 45 years ago was the launch of New Japan Pro Wrestling. And in the main event at that show, Karl Gotch ended up defeating Antonio Inoki in the main event. It just amazing wrestling comes out of Japan, always has. But this was the launch of a company that really would have, no one could have seen it coming, how much of an impact they were going to have on the world of wrestling, creating stars like the Kazuchika Okadas, the Tanahashis, Toji Makabes, the Shinsuke Nakamura's, and people like that. The talent that has come from Japan. Great Muta, Masachono, all these guys, Hiroshi Hase, there's so many names that go on and on and on that have just been off the charts phenomenal talent, and a lot of them that never stepped foot in a WWE ring, which is kind of a good thing because they got to maintain their own feel and their own style. On the flip side, I would have loved to give anything in the world to see the Great Muta step into a WWE ring just one time in his original Muta character, but that's a story for another day. However, speaking of Great Muta, if you want to see the Great Muta in action and you've never seen him when he was really a hot commodity, do a search for Great Muta versus Sting Television Championship, and you'll get to see the Great Muta defeat Sting and take home that gold for the first time in his career. An amazing match. That is our YouTube look back match for this episode. We're going to go to our fantasy booking time. As you guys know, we've been having our 64-man single elimination tournament going on. We've got several matches in the bag, but I'm going to give you 2 more tonight. And if you haven't figured out, the matches that I give you, there's usually one active wrestler and one older wrestler, less active wrestler. Tonight's are no different. Randy Orton taking on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Edge taking on Magnus of Impact Wrestling. So, in the comment section on YouTube, by all means, give me your votes. Randy Orton versus Ricky Steamboat, Edge versus Magnus. Who wins in those fantasy matchups? Alright, and as we go through the tournament, your votes, the person who receives the most vote, is going to be the one that moves on to the next round of the tournament, and we will see where we end up at the end of this tournament. Today's fan poll: which championship should headline WrestleMania? Now that all the matches are pretty well set, I guess we'll see this week what happens, but we expect it to be Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt. Should the Universal title or the WWE Championship from SmackDown be the headline match at WrestleMania? Or is there a different match? Give me your thoughts based on what you believe the WrestleMania card is going to be. Give me your thoughts on what should be the headline, the final match on the card at WrestleMania. If you haven't already, please give us a review, give us a subscribe. We need those things to help grow this podcast. I hope you guys enjoy what we do here. I had to take a couple days off just for my personal life, but at the end of the day, I'm very much committed to bringing you guys as much action and excitement as I can every single episode. Please don't forget about the Fro Life Planning Contest. For those who don't know what Fro Life Planning is, I help students and adult learners find their path to either higher education, meaning college or a university, or to a new career in the employment world. Every month, listeners of this podcast, I'll be giving away one free 30-minute one-on-one consultation to one lucky winner, or to the person that winner chooses, because you can transfer it to somebody else. It's not locked to you. So if you happen to be too young or too old to be going to college, or so you think, by all means, let me know who you want to give that to, and I will pass that on to them. No purchase necessary. Just follow these steps to enter the contest. 1. Launch iTunes in your electronic device. Go to the Fro Wrestling Podcast iTunes page where you can click subscribe. Once you've subscribed, go down to the ratings and reviews, and by all means, give us an honest review. Write a review for us and click submit. Once you do that, I'm going to be able to see it, and then I want to match that up with something. I want you to go to our website at www.frolifeplanning.com/contest, and you can enter your email there for me to match up to your iTunes comment for your chance to have that one-on-one phone consultation to aid you in your planning of higher education or in finding that new career. That's all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us in the next episode, where I'm going to go over everything that happens tonight on Raw, take a look at what the WrestleMania card looks like, and we'll move on from there. There's so much going on right now in the world of wrestling, whether it's the Hardys in Ring of Honor, Impact with all their changes, Raw and SmackDown just going out of control heading into WrestleMania. There's so much going on, so much to look forward to, and I'm going to try to bring it all to you. Special thanks as always go out to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all the sound and music for our show today. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games and bring some fun fun and excitement back to family game night by going to www.thegamecrafter.com/sketchypeople to pick up your copy today. And to alleyrepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade needs. We want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today with our podcast. We want to make sure you stop into our website at www.frolifeplanning.com to learn more about what Mr. Fro can do for you. Remember, Fro-Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro-Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro, and I want to thank you for taking a few moments with me today. I look forward to discussing more of the current events, the rumors, everything going on in the world of wrestling with you shortly. So long, everybody.